Hi, my dear friends. This is Franco Tonelli, and this is Science of Singing. This is a very important program to understand how our voice functions. At the end of this lecture, it will be clear also why head voice can't be turned into Chiaro, scuro, full supported voice. And also in this program, I will explain why these great singers as Maria Callas and Di Stefano did not use one timbral singing or full-fledged appoggio technique. I will mention those singers who supported one timbral appoggio technique and used it practically. In this program, with the help of the sound, I will try to clear up all these ideas about falsetto, head voice, and other types of voice production. I will give you, for example, the more complete definition of falsetto that you know. Falsetto is the voice production when vocal cords are not fully closing up. Sometimes we call it a breathy voice, so we hear a little hiss of not used air. Not all air turns into a sound. That's what falsetto voice is. I know that some of you associate falsetto exclusively with the high voice, the voice that lies above passaggio or in a passaggio zone. That is incomplete understanding of falsetto, because falsetto has two types. I will explain that shortly later, but let's see how falsetto acts. Falsetto turns into a head voice at a certain range. We call it reinforced falsetto. You hear I start with falsetto, and then by increasing compression, I get a head voice, which is a lot stronger, though it sounds almost as falsetto. That's why we call it reinforced falsetto. Let's hear it again. Falsetto can be also of a chest register, so-called crooning voice falsetto, or chest falsetto. Let's hear chest falsetto. The question is, can we turn chest falsetto into a chiaro scuro sound without a break? Let's see. As we see from the examples, chest falsetto lies below passaggio zone and can be converted into chiaro scuro tone without a break. Now you can ask the question why. Because it does not require placement change. Without placement change, just by increasing compression on the vocal cords, as you've heard before, you can form out of chest voice a full chiaro scuro voice. Head falsetto lies above passaggio zone and can be converted into a head voice without a break, as I showed that before. So we see falsetto voice can be of a low character in a chest register, or it can be in a head register. And it has some common things why we call it false or falsetto, because as we see, all falsetto voices more or less significantly lose air during the phonation, so they are breathy more or less, and that's what we have in common with both falsetto, chest falsetto and head falsetto. Also, if you noticed that head voice has something in common with chiaro scuro voice. Both are based on full vocal cords closure. The difference between them that there are two different registers, meaning there are two different placements required to get to those registers. Now we see that chiaro scuro sound is not a chest register or a head voice. Chiaro scuro sound is one sound that is formed during classical phonation. And chiaro scuro tone, which situates in the same place or placement a chest falsetto, can form a sound that is capable of covering consistently around 2 octaves of range without any break in a voice if properly supported. Why? Because it requires only one placement, only one acoustic ambience. It behaves like one acoustic instrument's solid body. The big mistake is often singers take a chest voice for a chiaro scuro voice, for the reason that all the scuro tones always contain a little bit of a chiaro. It's just the nature of sound harmonics. In fact, in a recording, the difference is even more difficult to hear due to the compressive balancing quality of the mics. Also, because this chest falsetto is often used in so-called art songs, like German and Lieder. Like in this example, Ich liebe dich so wie du mich. In a recording, you may mistakenly take this sound for full-fledged chiaro scuro sound, which is not correct. That was just the scuro, the chest voice. As I explained, due to the nature of harmonics, it still sounds that it has a little chiaro plus the microphone manipulation, and you hear this almost as the full-fledged chiaro scuro sound, but this is just the chest voice. If you don't have a real chiaro scuro teacher, you may take this chest falsetto for chiaro scuro sound and assuming it's operating with scuro chiaro sound, trying to sing passaggio and higher with that approach. That wrong assumption leads to wrong technique. For that, I will send you a link right now for you to understand all the steps of appoggio, how to develop appoggio technique. So let's see what happens with that sound when we're trying to sing through our range. So we take a low note in a chest falsetto manner, assuming we sing chiaro scuro and sing into passaggio and higher. If we do it naturally, chest falsetto will turn into a head falsetto with no break in the voice, through means of raising larynx or gradual placement change, like in this case. This is 2.5 octave vocal passage with chest falsetto turning to a head falsetto without break by the means of gradually raising larynx. So we gradually change the position and placement in order to sing the higher notes. Now, when you use this type of voice and a microphone, the change will be very insignificant. Now, let's experiment what's going to happen if I try not to gradually change my larynx position in this particular case and try to sing higher. You see, I can hardly reach 2 octaves and my voice at the top starts to choke. Many inexperienced singers and teachers take chest voice for chiaro scuro voice, and that's why they're assuming, if they sing with what they're assuming is wrong, it's just the chest falsetto, why it is so difficult for them to get to the passaggio and higher. Because, I repeat, you take this chest falsetto for a chiaro scuro sound, which is not the same. If you try to keep low larynx position trying to reach passaggio and higher through chest falsetto, your voice will break sooner or later. Approximately points of no return are A flat or A, where you just simply cannot sing higher. Not reaching, of course, the whole range and power. I said once that placement change technique was introduced by less vocally talented singers who themselves use that technique. On the contrary, great singers like Lily Lemon, Enrico Caruso, Beniamino Gilli, Björling, Pavarotti, and you name it, all these great singers were for one timbral chiaro scuro appoggio technique. Among great singers who did not use appoggio technique were Maria Callas and Di Stefano. Actually, both for opposite reasons. Maria Callas was a Wagnerian singer with a big dramatic voice, and Tullio Serafin is responsible for everything that happened to Maria Callas. As I said, I should make a separate program on Maria Callas' voice technique and art. This is a proof that conductors have a little knowledge of a human voice. They still have this ignorant idea that voice is a voice, soprano is a soprano, tenor is a tenor. But sometimes mistake leads to a discovery, like in Maria Callas' case. Maria Callas had no choice but to use placement technique to interpret bel canto roles which had a lot greater range than Wagnerian, since she sang with the same volume as if she were singing Wagner. So you understand that the volume and the range are very dependent on each other. I already mentioned that in my previous programs. On the opposite, Di Stefano was lyric tenor. So he moved from very lyric tenor to a lyrico drammatico without learning new support and new placement. He had to switch registers heavily on F sharp or A flat. So if we look at the chest and head falsetto, there are two indeed separate registers and have two separate placements of a larynx. Chest have lower placement and head has higher placement. Head falsetto can be turned into a head voice simply by intensifying air pressure on the vocal cords. Likewise, chest falsetto can be turned into a full supported chest voice without a break. Falsetto sound is much less complex than chiaro scuro sound, which has two vocal formantas. So remember that chiaro scuro sound has two vocal formantas. Falsetto sound doesn't have any formants except for chest falsetto. As I mentioned, that explains why chest falsetto can have a little chiaro. And so this falsetto looks more like an instrumental sound, the high falsetto. The question is why chest falsetto sound can be turned into a full chiaro scuro sound without a break, while head falsetto is impossible to turn into chiaro scuro sound without a break. Because this would require heightened larynx to be lowered during the phonation. The same goes with the head voice, which is stronger sound than falsetto, but has the same placement. To say more laconically, larynx placement or its position change causes obvious change of a voice timbre or color in certain cases. In cases certainly more classical and more operatic, when the voice is more powerful and richer. While voice producing a soft falsetto sound, that position change is not chiaroscuro sound and causes break or inconsistency. Sometimes the break is used as a vocal movement, like in yodeling. Example. Here you hear a chest falsetto breaking into a head falsetto. If we try to do it in one register, a chiaroscuro tone, it will sound like this. In classical operatic music, falsetto is almost never used, or often used as a comic tool, like in Figaro's. Figaro, 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 Figaro. There's a great misunderstanding or even ignorance in a phrase that if you practice and reinforce your falsetto, you will get your high notes connected to the rest of the voice. This is an absurd statement. If you followed me attentively, you will realize why is it an absurd and why practicing head voice or so-called reinforced falsetto will never, I repeat, never help you to sing top notes with full connection. Head voice, no matter how strong it is, will never turn into a Chiaro scuro sound because it's produced in a higher larynx position, unable to resonate low frequencies. Thank you very much. That was Franco Tenelli and Science of Singing.
Oh